No one in Washington expected that Bob Woodward would become the thread that, pulled patiently and persistently, would unravel a presidency. It began on a humid June night in 1972 with a bungled break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters inside the Watergate complex. 5 men were caught creeping through offices and wiring rooms. At first, it looked like a petty burglary, a midnight crime scene on the city's television screens. But for 2 young reporters at the Washington Post, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, small discrepancies and strange connections stung of something far larger. The context was a nation riven by Vietnam and political upheaval. Richard Nixon's 1972 re-election campaign was obsessed with intelligence, covert ops, dirty tricks, and the machinery of power that promised to silence trouble. The burglars were not amateurs. They had links, some to the White House, some to a re-election committee called CREEP, Committee to Re-elect the President, some to men with past ties to the CIA. Their goal? Bug phones, photograph material, and gather information to be used in political warfare. Woodward and Bernstein followed threads no one else trusted. They listened to petty sources, chased courtroom filings, and parsed offhand comments. They received a cryptic, steady stream of direction from an anonymous inside source who insisted on secrecy. The source arranged meetings in an underground parking garage, whispered guidance and warnings, and repeatedly told the reporters where to look next. Decades later, that source would be revealed as Mark Felt, the FBI's associate director, but at the time, the identity was a guarded secret that fueled myth and fear. The reporter's small discoveries exposed a pattern: hush money paid to the burglars, efforts to obstruct the FBI, and official pressure applied to investigators. In court, one of the defendants, James McCord, sent a letter asserting that perjury had been committed and that higher-ups had orchestrated the operation. That letter was a fulcrum. Suddenly, what had been a criminal misadventure looked like a deliberate campaign of political espionage backed by men inside the White House. Tension escalated. The Senate launched televised hearings. John Dean, White House counsel, began to talk, and his testimony described meetings in which Nixon aides discussed how to impede the investigation. Then came the discovery that changed everything. The White House had an automatic taping system that recorded Oval Office conversations. When Alexander Butterfield, a former presidential aide, confirmed the existence of tapes, the story pivoted from allegation to potential proof. What followed was a study in conspiracy and cover-up. The Nixon administration sought to block subpoenas, to use federal agencies to derail the FBI, and to conceal the chain of command that tied the break-in back to senior aides and, crucially, to the president's own staff. Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox was fired in the Saturday Night Massacre after insisting on access to the tapes. Public confidence cratered. The conflict between institutional secrecy and a free press intensified into a constitutional crisis. As legal battles reached the Supreme Court and recorded conversations began to surface, the shape of the conspiracy became undeniable. The tapes captured discussions about hush money and the quashing of investigations. Under the pressure of imminent impeachment and a shrinking circle of support, Nixon faced the bleak arithmetic of indictment and trial. On August 8, 1974, Richard Nixon announced his resignation, the first and only U.S. president to do so. What began as a break-in at a hotel complex had exposed an apparatus of clandestine political warfare and a presidential effort to obstruct justice. It revealed how paranoia at the top can contaminate institutions and how determined journalism, legal inquiry, and public reckoning can hold power to account. Watergate's legacy stretched far beyond a single resignation. It reshaped campaign law, strengthened oversight, and seared into the American consciousness a lesson about the fragility of democratic norms. And in the aftermath, 2 young reporters, an anonymous informant in a parking garage, and a chorus of prosecutors and witnesses showed that in a republic, secrecy can be pried open, but only if enough people are willing to keep pulling on the loose thread until the whole pattern is revealed.